Welcome to the Seniors Rock Show, presented by the Law Office of Michael Robinson, PC, on News Radio, Wham 1180. The Seniors Rock Show, a lively weekly discussion shedding a bright light on aging with fun, entertainment, and important info for all adults. Join in with your comments or questions. Call or text 222-1180 or 1-800-295-1180. Now from the News Radio Wham 1180 studio in downtown Rochester, here's your host, Joanna Palvino.
Well, welcome to Seniors Rock Radio. It's Saturday, so let's have a good time. And I'd just like to start with saying thank you for joining us. And we're here. I say we. There are other folks with me, and they're part of the show and very important. Attorney Mike Robinson is here. He's my co-host. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Joanna. Happy Saturday.
Thank you. Same to you. And we couldn't do this without the expertise of our studio producer. There's Pam. She's in the studio. Happy Saturday, Pam.
Happy Saturday to you both.
I hope you're having a good one so far. It's so good to see both of you. And you know what? I'm going to start this with saying that I had a week where I had the pleasure of seeing friends and relatives that I don't really see very often, or I'll say not often enough. So I wanted to start the show today with a shout out to Shirley Alessi. She's a friend, and I found out this week she's also a listener of the show. It was wonderful to see you, and I'm going to call her Aunt Shirley. She's not really my aunt, but she feels like it. And I want you to know that I really appreciate you telling me that you're a listener and how much you enjoy the show. And I wanted to say to the other special people in the Alessi and Wigmore families that are listening today, it was wonderful to connect with you all. And even though we were together for a bit of a sad reason, we really did celebrate, and we celebrated the life of a very special woman. And that was our beloved Tess Wigmore. And she was like a mom to me, and she was like a mom to everybody, really. She was a sweet woman, and there were so many great stories about her, lots of laughter, and of course, tears. And I could go on all day, Mike, about how Tess's incredible story of strength inspires everybody that knows it, and about the beautiful ceremony and church service that they had. But we only have an hour, so I'll stick to a couple of things that really stuck with me, and I hope that it's inspiring to other folks. And they were the words of Father Bob when he said that Tess was a perfect example of the kind of person they just don't make anymore. That that how they say that they have that saying, they just don't make them like they used to. Well, that's Tess, and he reminded that term was trendy like it is now. And Tess, she watched what she ate, and she even took Zumba lessons into her 80s. So he, the priest said that he could remember, or we could remember Tess by following her example and caring for our bodies too. So today we're going to introduce you to two health experts that might help you along the way to feeling the best you can. So we've got two doctors for you, Pat Neary of Agape Physical Therapy. Dr. Susan Newman of Heart, Hearing, and Balance Centers are here. And but before the doctors join us, I got to get back to the start of the show again. That's going to happen in a little bit. Stay with us. But we're going to start with some great estate planning advice from my co-host, attorney Mike Robinson. He's here, and we're ready now, Mike, for number 10 in your series, The Basics of Estate Planning.
All right. And yes, we are at episode number 10. And just a quick recap. In previous episodes, we've discussed what happens in the probate process, and that's the court proceeding that's required upon your death when you pass your assets with a will. And to summarize, probate can be a very lengthy process. It can be very expensive and just generally aggravating and stressful for the family. And then also in previous episodes, we've discussed strategies people use to try to avoid probate. And we looked at the transfer on death designations, use of joint tenancy, naming individuals as beneficiaries of life insurance, annuities, and retirement accounts. And we also identified the shortcomings with each of those strategies. And today, we're going to continue our discussion on strategies people use to avoid probate by examining the use of trusts in estate planning.
Mike, that word trust, we hear that a lot. I have to clarify, as usual, I'm not as smart as you. I understand there are many different kinds of trusts. Is that true? That's my first question.
Yes, Joanna, that's a good question because oftentimes people they hear the word trust and they assume it means something in particular, and it doesn't necessarily because as you say, there are many different types of trusts and they're done for many types of different purposes. And so the ultimate structure and mechanics of any particular trust are tailored to the particular purpose or purposes for which the trust is created. But having said that, there are some basic features that all trusts have in common. And first, a trust is a legal entity that can hold title to assets, whatever type of trust it may be. So, a person is a legal entity, a corporation, a partnership, or a limited liability company. Those are all other examples of entities. A trust is a legal entity. Second, a trust is nearly always created by signing a formal legal document. And there are some instances where a trust can be created orally, but that's rare, and it's certainly not done in connection with estate planning. But third, all trusts have the same three positions: the trustor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. And the trustor, and sometimes they're also referred to as a grantor or a settlor, they're the person who creates the trust and typically who transfers their assets into the name of the trust. And depending on the purpose of the trust, there may be more than one trustor. For example, when a married couple creates a trust together, there will be two trustors. So the trustor is the creator of that trust. The trustee is the person who has legal control over the assets in the trust. And there may be more than one trustee, but there always must be at least one trustee to manage the trust. And then the beneficiary is the person for whose benefit the trust assets are being managed. And here again, there may be more than one beneficiary. Also, there can be different classes of beneficiaries. For example, there may be someone who is a beneficiary of income that is earned by the trust and a different beneficiary eligible to receive distributions of principal from the trust. And there can be also what we call current beneficiaries and then future or remainder beneficiaries.
Wow, that's a lot of information. It's very interesting. Give us an example, if you would, of when there would be a current and remainder beneficiary.
Sure. In fact, I'll give you a pretty common example. I might, for example, create a trust to benefit my wife during her lifetime. And so during her lifetime, she would be the current beneficiary. And if I then, though, have my children named to be the beneficiaries of any assets left in the trust once my wife has died, my children would be what we would call the remainder beneficiaries.
Oh, okay. I see. That makes sense then.
Yeah, and so all trusts are going to have those three positions: trustor, trustee, and beneficiary. And in our workshops and webinars, I always like to ask the audience, if you could only be one of those three, which one do you want to be?
Hmm.
The beneficiary, of course.
Of
So,
course.
so anyway, that's so we're always going to have those three positions, and the only one that never changes is the trustor, the person or persons creating the trust. They're who they are, but the trustees and the beneficiaries can and often do change over time.
So, Mike, who would someone name as a trustee or beneficiary of a trust?
So, another great question. And Joanna, the answer really depends on what is the purpose of the trust. And that is exactly the issue we'll examine in our next installment of our series. We'll look at some specific types of trusts and who typically are named as trustees and as beneficiaries of those trusts.
Very good and very interesting. And folks, if you haven't heard the previous uh, uh, lessons, if you will, that Mike's given us on the basics of estate planning, you can go to seniorsrockradio.com. They're all there. And also, you can get more information, obviously, at his website, mrobinsonlaw.com. And you can always call with questions. I want to mention this, Mike. We are live today and every Saturday, folks, from 12 to 1. And we do have a packed show today. We have two guests. We have lots of good information. But if you feel like we're too busy to take calls, we wanted to be sure you knew that we're not, and we always are here for you. You can always leave a question with Pam. Mike will get back to you. We can answer on the air if we have time. If not, he can email you or give you a call after the show. So don't be afraid to call. It's 585-222-1180. Mike, thank you for that. It's interesting how you chunk it down for us because there are so many elements to estate planning.
It is, and I think it is easier to take it in bite-sized chunks. Otherwise, it can just be a little overwhelming and really hard to see how does anything apply to me and my family.
Not to mention that it changes so often. And what I thought I knew about wills and estate planning before I listened to you or met you, way different. I mean, I feel a little bit dangerous, but I need to rely on you, and just like you folks should, if you don't talk to Mike Robinson, get to a really good estate planning attorney. There's lots of them here in the city. You're listening to Seniors Rock Radio, and why is exercise important at every age? Stay with us, and Dr. Pat Neary of Agape PT will tell us next on News Radio WHAM 1180.
Hi, attorney Mike Robinson here. Life comes at you fast. A properly drafted estate plan not only can protect what you've worked your lifetime to build, it also provides you with peace of mind knowing that you and your family are protected no matter what life may bring. Visit us at mrobinsonlaw.com to register now for our free educational webinar. You'll learn how an estate plan can benefit you and your family and how easy it is to get the process started. That's M. Robinson Law. Back to Seniors Rock Radio. You know, Joanna, I had a poster with those lyrics in my room when I was in junior high school. So there's a
I love
throwback.
it. It's a beautiful
So
song.
it is. Our guest here coming up now is Dr. Pat Neary, a physical therapist at Agape Physical Therapy in Greece. Pat has worked in skilled nursing facilities, orthopedics, and sports medicine. He grew up in Greece, and he's excited to continue to make an impact on his hometown community. He's certainly making an impact on the older adults he works with. So welcome to the Seniors Rock Show, Dr. Neary.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be on here.
Welcome, Dr. Neary. This is Joanna, and I'm also a West Sider, so we're glad to have you over here on this side of the river. I know Agape has other, you're from Pittsford. There's several locations, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, I think we're going to start with, we like to think we can do everything as we age, and we sometimes can't do it like we used to, so we have to adjust a little bit. My question for you is, what are some of the physical limitations that you see in older adults that you treat?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you guys and help kind of help to hopefully educate a lot of your viewers and help to hopefully motivate them to spend more time being physically active and exercising.
Yep.
I see a huge variety of patients, but oftentimes one of the and it's tough to narrow it down to just one, but some of the main ones that I see that that are pretty consistent no matter what condition that I see is weakness in the lower body and specifically in certain muscles that over time can really reduce one's ability to function the way that they used to and the way that they really want to. Specifically when I was working in nursing homes prior to when I started at Agape, one of the things that I think would catch everybody by surprise, but especially me being as young as I was the amount of people that would kind of made their way into a nursing home because they were sitting on a couch and all of a sudden one day they were so weak that they just couldn't stand up. And a lot of the times there's, that leads down to this because of this path of sedentary behavior, which is decreased physical activity throughout the day.
That brings up an interesting question, and I know it's going to vary from person to person, but is there a minimum amount of exercise that you'd recommend to an older adult?
Yeah, so there is a minimum requirements, and I will share those in a minute. But the question shouldn't be what's the minimum amount I can do. It's I you should be looking to do as much as you possibly can. Ultimately, there is no maximum, right? The more the better. Um,
That
and
makes
going into
sense.
this and going into this approach of how what's the least amount that I can do to kind of get by for everybody isn't, and for most people, it shouldn't necessarily be the approach. Now, the World Health Organization every year or every few years puts out their guidelines of general recommended physical activity, and what they recommend as minimum amounts are 30 minutes a day of physical activity 5 days a week. So that leads to
All
about
right.
150 minutes total. Um, Take 30 minutes out of your day to spend time being physically active, right? And physically active doesn't mean I have to be going out doing sprints or anything like that.
Right.
Physically active means doing physical activity, right? Like getting out,
Right.
whether you're gardening, whether you're doing yard work, whether you take a walk. Maybe you take 3 walks a day in 10-minute bouts. You're hitting those minimum requirements. And some of the things that we're seeing are people are not hitting those requirements. About 25% of people are actually less than 20% of people are actually hitting those minimum requirements in America, which is pretty surprising.
Wow. I think I like the that you can do it. You don't have to do a certain amount every day or anything, but just try to get those number of minutes in throughout the week, right? It's terrific. And we only have another minute or so left, Doctor, but I'm really happy you're with us. We're with Dr. Pat Neary. If you just tuned in, he's with Agape Physical Therapy. He's in the Greece location. And is there a difference between, real quick, between physical activity and exercise? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so physical activity, like I said, is anything where you're physically active. Um, well, for it to be exercise, we're looking to have an overload stimulus. So you're looking to have some changes, whether it's get your heart rate up, get your respiratory rate up, or challenge your muscles to the point where it's difficult to lift something, right? That is the thing that leads to adaptation in your body and leads to positive changes. So physical
Great.
physical activity is awesome. You should never stop doing it. But if you're looking to make positive changes in through your body, you need to have some sort of challenge.
Got it. All right, doctor, thanks. Great advice. And again, we really appreciate you sharing that with our listeners this afternoon. Once again, it's Dr. Pat Neary with Agape Physical Therapy in the Greece office, and you can reach Dr. Neary at 585-617-0581. And stay
Thanks for
with
being
us.
with us.
Yes, thanks again. And stay with us. We'll be back after the news break. This is Seniors Rock Radio on News Radio Wham 1180.
When you've lost movement, flexibility, strength, or balance, traveling a long distance for physical therapy seems like a bad decision. That's why Agape Physical Therapy has a convenient location near you, east side or west side. And there's a new location in Pittsford with Aqua Therapy. Let Agape Physical Therapy and wellness professionals customize a treatment program for you to help you recover quickly. Visit agapephysicaltherapy.com and schedule your free consultation today. No doctor referral needed.
Hi, and you're listening to the Seniors Rock Radio Show. If you just tuned in, I'm Joanna, your host. I'm here with estate planning attorney Mike Robinson, our producer Pam, and now joining us, Dr. Susan Newman. Dr. Susan Newman began her audiology career over 35 years ago, right here in Rochester, and that was at HART Hearing and Balance Centers. And then she spent a few years at Monroe Bosse's. She received her master's in audiology from Ohio University and her doctorate from the University of Florida. She's very excited to return to Rochester from the Erie, PA area now to be closer to her family, serve the patients here. So Susan enjoys knitting and reading in her free time and definitely cherishes time with her growing family. So today, or this month, is Audiology Awareness Month, and we thought it would be a good time to learn more about that subject. So I'm so happy to introduce now Dr. Susan Newman. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
And I'm so
Um,
happy to have you here and to clarify a little bit and teach us some stuff. I think Mike had a question for you.
Yeah, thanks,
oh,
Dr.
okay, great.
Newman. Could you tell our listeners what exactly is an audiologist?
An audiologist is a person who, at this point in time, will have a doctorate degree in audiology. And there are many facets of audiology, but they are a hearing specialist who determines if a person would have a hearing loss or a medical condition related to their hearing.
Whoops, sorry, I had myself muted there.
Oh,
Every day is a challenge.
yeah,
Now
I
you
know.
can hear me. I'm curious, doctor. How did you choose this profession, this field of work?
I actually had some deaf relatives in my family. I always loved working with children, so my bachelor's degree was actually in speech pathology. And from there, I realized that I was very interested in the hearing aspect. So I then went on to seek my master's degree. And my first love, once I got into that program, was realizing that I wanted to be an educational audiologist. So after beginning with HART Hearing and Balance Center, actually Dr. Stephen Hart and I crossed paths at Monroe Bosie's #1. And I spent many years there providing services to students, typically developing students and students with disabilities.
Interesting. Doctor, what changes have you seen in the field of audiology since you began?
Oh, many. I have gray hair, and I pointed out to my patients that it's obvious I've been in the field for quite a while. And I was mentioning to a patient the other day, remarking on how it has changed from when one of my first students, when I was in graduate school, had to wear a body-worn hearing aid with cords that would go up to her ears in order to treat her profound hearing loss. And now we have students, children that are babies actually, that are receiving cochlear implants within the first year of life to access auditions so that they're able to learn how to communicate, how to learn, and are doing awesome. And that's one of the biggest things that has happened in the hearing aid technology. Again, we go from body-worn hearing aids with cords to very small hearing aids that can barely be seen, that can be programmed through computer software. And it's actually amazing the flexibility and sophistication that are now in our hearing instruments.
That's
Wow.
terrific. Technology has entered that every field, I guess, right? And I'm going to
Yes.
ask, Doctor, um, if as we age, I know some of my friends say, "Oh, I'm having problems with that background noise and that kind of thing." Tell us what's the first sign you might want to see an audiologist, and I guess who should see one, and what can they expect when they come and see you?
Well, again, having experience in educational audiology, I would say that it's a lifespan, so that beginning even in newborn hearing screening, or if any um, individuals have family members, grandchildren that may not be developing their communication or their speech and language, all the way up to an aging adult who may not be able to participate in communication with their family. It can happen very gradually and not always be noticed until there's a turning point. And the research is pretty strong on both the early intervention aspect as well as the aging aspect of isolation and the impact that that has on a person's memory and cognitive stability. So anytime someone is feeling isolated because they can't hear their family members or their communication is impacted, that's an awesome time to get to an audiologist to have that assessed and then determine what treatments would be important and helpful at that point.
Sure, and that makes sense. We're going to be going to break very shortly, but doctor, what can someone expect in terms of an evaluation?
Some people come in very nervous about an evaluation with us, but there is nothing that we do that is painful. Um,
Doctor,
we
I'm sorry, there's the
assess.
music, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. But I can
Okay.
tell you folks firsthand, I've been there and does not hurt, and it's quite exciting when you find out you might be hearing more than you thought you were. There's 5 locations
Yeah.
for Heart Hearing, and you can go to hearthearing.com. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan Newman, for joining us today. We'll have you back again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Keep listening now to News Radio WHAM 1180. We've got more Seniors Rock coming up right after the break.
Our area's first direct primary care practice, Athena Direct Primary Care and Lifestyle Medicine, is open. Direct primary care is an innovative alternative to traditional corporate-style primary care, where you pay a monthly membership fee. There are no fee-for-service payments, no third-party billing. So less paperwork leaves time for extraordinary direct access to your own private physician, a members-only phone line, and unlimited, unhurried appointments. And other services are included too. That's all for one low rate. Athena Direct Primary Care is accepting new patients for a limited time only. Book your free meet and greet with Dr. Laura Petrescu today. Learn about this wonderful new practice, including membership benefits and the costs, at athenadirectcare.com. That's athenadirectcare.com. Or you can call. It's 585-662-5510.
The law office of Michael Robinson, PC, has helped families protect their hard-earned wealth from nursing home expense, probate, and taxes. Visit us online to register for our free educational webinar to learn how you can protect you and your family. mrobinsonlaw.com.
The bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout. Throw your hands up and shout. Throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the bills are making it happen now. Stand up now, come on and shout. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And welcome back to Seniors Rock Radio. I'm Mike Robinson here with Joanna Palvino. And Joanna, the Bills have always made me want to shout, but the last few years they've been better shouts, I will say that.
I'll say, and that music just makes me happy. I don't know what, it's just the whole tempo and the Bills Mafia. I mean, they're crazy people and I love them all. It's great.
Well, when
And
you
I
hear
love
it,
your shirt.
there you
I'm
go.
sorry. I was just going to say, listeners, you can't see Mike, but he has a Grateful Dead / Buffalo Bills shirt on. It's pretty cool.
Nope, it's a good song. It means points on the board. So, in a big game, of course, tomorrow afternoon. Looking forward to that. Something I wanted to mention too is, and you and I were talking about it earlier, but Thursday, Kelly and I attended Lifespan's annual Rocco Vivenzio Memorial Symposium. And the speaker this year was Dr. Tracy Gendron, and she's the author of a book called Ageism Unmasked. And that, in fact, was the title of her talk. And it was very interesting. And Joanna, you and I have talked about ageism and its impact. And a couple of things she said really stood out to me in particular. One was just how ubiquitous the message is to all of us that getting old is a bad thing. Um,
Hmm.
that aging is bad. And she was showing magazine covers from back, before we were born. So it's nothing
Hmm.
new. So we've all grown up with it. It just infuses our life, and that mindset of aging is bad creates a lot of stress for people.
I'll say.
And because you can view, you look at aging for society in general, but we also look at aging in terms of how does that impact ourselves. And if we're seeing it as a bad thing, first of all, it's inevitable, as none of us can escape it, so that creates stress. And she was talking about the different ways in which that stress can impact people's physical health.
Hmm.
And Joanna, the number that just jumped out at me is she said that that the stress of a negative view of aging on your own aging can cut 7.5 years off of your life.
Wow, that is amazing, but not a shock to me because stress does so many negative things and manifests itself in so many ways that we don't expect. So, yeah, I hope that the purpose of our show is to try to bring these things to light and to try to help everybody to age more and have more fun and be happy. But there are challenges that cause stress, so that's a good point. And it's also a good reason to try to manage the stress. So, what did she say? You mentioned earlier that she talked about successful aging. Mike, what did that mean?
Well, and she, yeah, she did talk about that, and what doesn't it mean? And sort of traditionally, it has meant things like, well, when you're 85 years old, you're still mountain biking, or you're out hiking in the Adirondacks. All of that's wonderful, but that doesn't define successful aging.
Right.
It's not about physical ability, and that's important to know.
We're going to talk more about this subject because it's so important. I want to thank Lifespan for bringing it to town, for bringing Dr. Gendron to town, and Mike for you going and bringing it to us. So next week we're going to have Wise Home Energy's Jeff Flaherty telling us how to stay warm in our house. For the winter coming up, and lots more good stuff. So, Mike.
Be well and be kind.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you enjoyed this week's show, and you will come back next Saturday from noon till 1. You are the reason we're here. And until we meet again, don't forget, seniors rock.